So since when I was a little girl, I've always had this fascination in something more. I knew that I wasn't just a physical body, and I had a sense that there was something bigger or greater, but I didn't really know what that was or where to look or where to search. And I ended up developing a fascination in things like horoscopes, the supernatural. I read all the Goosebumps books, the whole series. I was fascinated with ghosts and things that I didn't realise at the time were actually quite dark, but looking back now, it was like that longing for more, for something greater. Hi, my name's Lauren Smith, and I'm a member of Revival Church Billericay. I remember around the age of 9, my dad would get the Sun newspaper for the sports, and my mum was always a little bit embarrassed that he'd buy that newspaper, but he would say it was because of the football. And when the paper would arrive, I'd go straight to the back and read the horoscope, because I was always interested in knowing or connecting with something more than my physical body. I knew there was something more, but at the time I didn't know what that something more was. And that carried through, that fascination in ghosts and the supernatural and psychic abilities. My 2 best friends passed away when we were children, and they were twin sisters. And they had a condition called cystic fibrosis, which meant their life expectancy wasn't going to be longer than like 30 years. And Sarah actually passed away when she was 11, and Hayley was 15. And with Sarah, I grieved. I went through the grieving process, but I didn't really understand like where she'd gone or why she'd had to die so young. And then with Hayley, I just squished the pain down so deeply, so I was avoiding feeling that pain. And I dealt with the 2 deaths very differently. But what happened was it ignited within me that wanting to connect with them and questioning where they'd gone and if I was ever going to see them again. And I found it really hard to let them go. And it wasn't until I went to university, and I guess I was able to make my own decisions on where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. And I decided to join a spiritualist church. And I started attending, I don't know what you'd call them, like they're not really sermons, it's more just like demonstrations. And I guess I was always wanting them to contact me, to know that they were there. And one thing led to another, and I ended up getting deeper and deeper into the occult, New Age world. It started off with a spiritualist church, and then it was like psychic readings, tarot readings, and then that naturally led on to more healing, intuitive things. I started attending spiritual development circles, and it just got a little bit stranger, and some of them were trance channeling and people actually allowing spirits into their bodies, and it just got a little bit weird and a little bit strange, but I still had that fascination and that seeking. I didn't know what it was I was seeking for, but there was something within me that just was seeking truth and ultimately God. I just didn't know at the time that it was God that I was searching for. And then I think because I squished down so much pain from losing Hayley, I was looking for ways to avoid that pain, and I ended up basically partying every night, not looking after my body at all, not sleeping, just was intoxicated most of the time. I was just avoiding feeling that pain that was deep within me. And I was actually diagnosed with a condition called rheumatoid arthritis when I was 22, I think I was 22. And that naturally led me into healing modalities such as Reiki, meditation to help with pain relief. And these things all worked temporarily, but I unknowingly opened myself up to so many spirits and darkness that I didn't know at the time. I ended up training as a Reiki master, and trained as a hypnotherapist, and trained in like things such as NLP and different mind-based modalities to like ultimately change my thoughts and program my mind. And I just got deeper and deeper and deeper into the occult and the New Age world. For the span of 14 years, I trained in many different modalities and ended up doing that work myself. But I'll be really honest, I was still searching. Even though I'd trained in so many different courses and had so many different like spiritual qualifications, there was still something missing. I still hadn't found what it was that I was looking for. But I had a really positive mindset because I'd conditioned my mind to feel good and think positively. It was like a facade. I kind of on the surface thought I was happy and living this blissful life, but underneath there was like a longing for something that I just couldn't quite explain what it was. Yeah, and it was just like this constant search. I felt like I was on a hamster wheel, like the next course I'll figure it all out and will feel complete and settled. And at the time I was meditating around 2 hours a day, and I had to meditate in order to feel calm and peaceful. It was like I had to maintain these practices on myself in order to function in the world, because if I stopped meditating or stopped practicing these modalities, I didn't feel good. So it's like I had to sort of catch up all the time. And fast forwarding a little bit, I got pregnant with my baby boy. Well, I say baby boy, he's now 3. And something started to change in my mind. I started to feel afraid and nervous. And I realized that positive mindset and all these beautiful feelings that I'd artificially created started to crumble. And I just felt a little bit lost, it was all bubbling to the surface, I think. Everything, that deeper longing was sort of coming up to the surface, and I started to feel a little bit uneasy. And it wasn't the easiest pregnancy. And then I actually had really, really traumatic birth, which I now know at the time just opened up so much darkness. It was really scary. I thought me or my boy or my son were going to die. It was really, really scary. And I was a little bit traumatized after, and felt really frightened of everything. Like even walking down the road past a dog or a loud noise, everything just felt really scary. And at the time, my relationship with my now husband wasn't going so well either. So it was relationship challenges, recovering from the birth trauma, plus my little boy was waking every hour at night. He just didn't sleep, so I was massively sleep deprived and just about holding on, like clinging on and functioning. And at that time we actually made a move from London to Billericay, and I just remember that time being really unsettling, but it was a kind of like I'd sort of surrendered at the same time. Like it was really hard, but I'd kind of relaxed into it being hard. I can't really put it into words, but something had shifted. And at that time, before the move, I was feeling guided to pray. I felt I needed to pray, and I kept meeting people that were wearing a cross around their neck, and I now know that was God trying to reach me, trying to pull me out. And it wasn't until we moved to Billericay, and it was in October 2 years ago, and I was holding my son, getting him to sleep, and I had my eyes closed, and I just felt this presence. When I say see and hear, it's like I saw and heard, but not with my physical eyes and ears. It was like I felt and knew that Jesus was there. I knew it was Jesus, and he was above me but also all around me, and I felt like he was trying to pull me up. And he said to me that he is the way, the truth and the life, that everything I'd been exploring was not the truth. It was never going to bring me peace and fulfillment that I was seeking. And I just had this sense of just being trapped, and he was trying to pull me out of this trap that I was in. And it was like on a soul level I understood exactly what he was telling me. And I remember, I think it was the next day or the following few days after, I remember going downstairs to the lounge, and there were like hundreds and hundreds of spiritual books on the occult and all these different new age practices, crystals, meditation, channeling, like all the different topics that I was into. And I was like, these have to go. I have no interest in any of this anymore. Something just shifted, and I knew I couldn't go back. I didn't understand it, but I knew that my soul or spirit, I knew something within me, that I guess the truth of who I am, was not interested in that world anymore. And something else started happening. The people that I looked up to, like the coaches and mentors and spiritual businesswomen and healers that I would go to and pay a lot of money to have sessions with, I started to see a darkness within them, and I started to look at them and see deception. And again, I had this feeling like I don't want to have sessions with these people. I don't want to look up to these people anymore, because I could see that it was deception and it wasn't the truth of what I was ultimately realizing. It's really tricky to put this into words, but I guess I was touched by God. Jesus rescued me and saved me out of that world, and it was like my mind was catching up with what had happened on a spiritual level. I remember waking up one morning around that time, around October, November, and I was dancing around the room and celebrating, and I was holding my son saying, we've been saved, and I felt that our souls were in the right hands. It was like we'd been transferred from the kingdom of darkness to the kingdom of light, literally, on a spiritual level. And I was dancing and celebrating, and I knew that we'd been saved, but my mind didn't understand. And it took a long while and also watching video after video of New Age to Jesus testimonies on YouTube. Every evening I would sit there for hours watching these testimonies, and the more I watched, the more I understood what had actually happened, and the world I'd come from, and the world I'm now in with Jesus, with God. And I could see how different they were. It was just incredible. This was 2 years ago. So me and my husband, I say husband, we only got married 3 weeks ago. That's another big part of the story, actually. Our relationship was completely on the rocks. I honestly didn't think that we were going to last. We both thought that it was inevitable that we were going to separate. And when I first joined Revival Church, I said to Jane, we need a miracle. And she said, you don't need a miracle, you need Jesus. And I think Jane was praying, Nick and I were praying. Nick at the time was doing an Alpha course, and the friends on the Alpha course were praying, and it was literally like a miracle happened and something shifted, and it was really obvious that we were meant to be together, and God showed me that he wanted us to get married. So we got married 3 weeks ago, and this is always what God wanted. There's been a lot of changes. It feels like we're more connected, like me and Nick and I now, it feels like we are, I can't really describe it, like harmonious, like together in God. I feel like God's holding us, and he's always wanted us to be together. And I can now see all of the disagreements and challenges from the past were what I now know to be, I guess, the darkness, the enemy trying to destroy and sabotage relationships. I'll be totally honest, I still really don't know what all of this means, but I trust Jesus and I trust God, and I trust I'm understanding more as time goes on without needing to know everything right now, because it was 14 years of the New Age and occult world that has crumbled in my mind. It's just gone, and I'm now I feel like a baby Christian, like a new Christian, and sometimes I'm not sure of what words to use to fit the experience, but I'm reading the Bible, and the more I read the Bible, the more I understand, and I'm learning what the Holy Spirit is and how the Holy Spirit is teaching me through reading the Bible. And the Bible literally feels alive. I feel the Spirit of God in the Bible, which is really interesting, because in the past I was very much into goddess worship and the divine feminine, and I saw the Bible as like this, something that was corrupt and edited and deceptive. I had a very different view of the Bible. So now to be reading the Bible and having an experience of God, it's like a huge transformation. And Nick and I were baptized last year, and we both gave our life to Jesus. Life just feels very different, very different. And I feel like I'm trusting, not knowing what's coming next as well. God's guiding me to do my teacher training, because I've trained as a Montessori teacher in the past, and God's guiding me to go and work in schools and do the QTS training. So I know that's the next step, but apart from that, I don't really know what's coming next. And whereas in the past I'd always go to like a tarot reader or a psychic, or I'd basically pay someone a lot of money to tell me what was going to happen next in my life. And now I don't know, but I trust God, and I trust when I'm meant to know, it's revealed to me. So that's been a big change as well. That seeking and needing to know has gone, and there's a real peace that comes with that not knowing but trusting.